The Northern Renaissance is different in many ways from the Italian Renaissance. The artistic styles vary a little bit. The way that it moved is different. And we'll talk about some more of those distinctions as we move through the lecture today. The Northern Renaissance would not have been as rapidly spreading as it was without the influence of Johann Gutenberg. What's he known for? The printing press. He did not invent the first printing press.
He printed the first Bible.
He did not print the first Bible.
The version.
Non-handwritten version.
Nope.
First English.
He invented the first European movable type printing press. The Chinese had long since had a movable type printing press, and the Bible had been printed before, but it was printed using a whole page press. The movable type press was far more efficient, far less costly, and it allows books to be printed in large number rapidly, thus reducing their cost, making them more widespread and readily available, which means that more people learn to read, so literacy rates increase, which means that ideas will spread more rapidly and more clearly. If you can read it off of the page rather than hearing it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it from somebody who heard it, that old game of telephone, the ideas are much less garbled. So a whole page plate is what we had before Gutenberg comes along. This entire page is carved into one lead plate. If you make one error, the whole thing has to be melted down and started over. So very time consuming to create this, very space intensive to save these, right? If you're going to print a book that's, say, a half an inch thick, you're going to have one of those for every side of a page, right? Cowabunga, right? So you're going to have huge warehouses to store these. So what happened is they would print as many copies as they thought they needed and then melt the things down and do the next book. So once the run of prints was done, you basically never printed that book again. Okay? So before Gutenberg, books are hand copied by monks or they are printed in this manner. Either way makes them incredibly, incredibly expensive. Books are rare. They exist pretty much only in monasteries, a few nunneries, and in Catholic churches. Only the fabulously wealthy could afford books. Some of the early wealthy merchants would buy books, but most of them couldn't even read them. Okay? And the early books printed in Greek. Okay? So Gutenberg develops this. This is movable type. Okay? If you look really closely, you can see that each letter is on its own piece of lead type. Okay? What that allows you to do is you make 1,000 M's and 1,000 O's and 1,000 T's, and then you just organize them in order. But look, it's backwards and upside down. The guy's job, whose it is to put this stuff in order, is called a typesetter. He's literally setting the type. He had to read upside down and backwards. How many of you think that you could set P's and D's and B's correctly without fail over and over and over again? Right? That'd be pretty tough, wouldn't it? Well, they did it a lot. A lot. And the thing is, so you print this page, you print as many copies of it as you need, dump the letters back in the bins, you have a little apprentice or a little kid who sorts them into their individual storage bins, and then the typesetter goes back to it, set in the next page. Pretty ingenious, right? A lot easier to store, more reusable, faster turnaround. So the first book that's printed by Gutenberg is the Bible. It's known as the Gutenberg Bible. A little detail on that you don't have to memorize. There are 3 complete copies of the Gutenberg Bible. There were several hundred printed initially. 3 complete copies remain in the world. We have one in the Library of Congress. This is actually it. The British Museum has one in London, and the Bibliothèque Nationale has one in France. There are lots of partial copies out there. What language was this printed in?
German.
No. Greek. The Bible hadn't been translated into German yet. Everybody thinks the Gutenberg Bible's done in German. Hadn't been translated yet. It's only because of Gutenberg and the printing press that it does get translated. Not only, but it's primarily because of Gutenberg and the printing press that it does get translated into German. And we're going to talk about who did that and why in the next section. But you can go physically to the Library of Congress and see this, or you can go to their website and see what it actually looks like. These pages are actually called vellum. It is calf skin, as in moo cow. It's leather. It's been rebound since its original printing. Each page is printed without its page capital letter at the beginning. That was all hand done, and most of the capital letters that started sections were hand done in color, and a little gold leaf here and there on some of the special copies. Fantastic thing for it to have lasted this long. If it were done on paper and had been through everything that books would have gone through from then, we probably wouldn't still have it. All right, the Northern Renaissance. We know that the Renaissance started in Italy and that it moves north. You might have expected the Northern Renaissance to have started in Switzerland, just north of Italy. But it didn't move by land. It moved to a trade capital. Flanders is a major trading region in what is today Belgium. Back then, Flanders is its own city-state, its own nation-state, really, fabulously wealthy. These guys are merchants, and they trade with Italy. So knowing that they have a lot of heavy trade with Italy, does it make sense that this is where the Renaissance would start in Northern Europe and it would spread from here? Because trade is how people and things move. So this is very huge. Coastal city that handles a lot of the trade is called Bruges. We're going to talk about a specific Flemish merchant who has a lot to do with the spread of the Northern Renaissance. If you are from Flanders, you are Flemish. F-L-E-M-I-S-H, not P-H-L-E-G-M, not but Flemish, F-L-E-M-I-S-H. You will need to know that. Your book refers to Flemish artists. They're not from Flem, they're from Flanders. By the way, if you Google Flanders looking for a map like this, perhaps, this isn't the Flanders that comes up. Any Simpsons fans? Ned Flanders? What's his line? Howdy ho, neighbor? Yeah. Like a whole page of Ned Flanders comes up. Really? All right. First artist you're going to have to know, Flemish artist, Peter Bruegel the Elder. Specifying here the elder because he has a son, also Peter Bruegel. Guess what they call him? Peter Bruegel the Younger. They were clever. Peter Bruegel the Elder and Peter Bruegel the Younger. You will not have to recognize any Younger's paintings, but they're very similar. So Peter Bruegel the Elder. Okay, this first painting is called The Harvesters. I know that's going to make it exceptionally difficult to remember because it has really nothing to do with what, oh wait, it's totally what the painting is, right? The Harvesters. One of Bruegel's characteristics is that he does life. He paints everyday peasant life. It doesn't get much more everyday peasanty than this, does it? What are they doing? Working, doing what? Harvesting what? Grain, wheat in particular, yes. Okay. So, down here in the distance, here's the little village in the fief. They've cut a path through the field to themselves to where they're harvesting. Looks like it must be lunch break here, right? We've got some folks eating. Some of them have spoons. This gal happens to be eating with her fingers. Okay. Anybody know what these things are called, these little A-frames of wheat? They're called shocks. They're called shocks. When you harvest this, there's still moisture in the grain at the end of the stalk, and so you have to stand it up to let it dry out. And they did it in this teepee form so that if it rained, the water would be shed. Because when they cut it, it's just laying down on the grounds, but they lay it in these bundles. Then these people are coming along and tying the bundles together, and then they'll stand them up into these shocks. Looks like somebody worked a little hard or partied a little too hard last night there, doesn't it? An interesting aspect of Bruegel's paintings, and one that really distinguishes Northern Renaissance from Italian Renaissance. Italian Renaissance, what were our subjects mostly? Religious and mythological, right? Not a very big amount of portraits done during the Italian Renaissance. Any ordinary, everyday peasant life? There's some, but it is not at all a focus. Landscapes, did we look at a lot of great landscapes? No, not very many. Look at what Bruegel's done here. If we take off the bottom part of this and you just look at the top, what have you got? A great landscape. And if we take up the top part and just look at the bottom, what have you got? Great depiction of everyday peasant life. Bruegel has blended two types of painting here together. And he's given us a wonderful view of the countryside and a pretty unique snapshot of how people spent their days. Okay. Who do we have here? Peasants, young, old, men, women, children. Men and women and children. Everybody works planting and everybody works harvest. Okay, next painting from Bruegel. This one is called Children's Games. It is one of his most famous. Children's Games. Look what it is. Children playing games. Again, another one that's going to be virtually impossible to remember its title, huh? The Harvesters. Who would ever come up with that? Children's Games. Psh. All right. Think you can handle this?
See.
I hope so. Why are you guys so mute today? It's a huge what? A huge street fight. Kind of. We're gonna zoom in on it here. And if you Google this at home, there are some huge resolution versions of this that you can see in great detail. It's an awesome painting. What's the overwhelming color tone that you feel here?
Yellow.
And how about here?
Yellow.
Okay. And let's take a peek at the next one I'm going to show you.
Yellow.
Bruegel, that's one of the characteristics of a Bruegel painting. His people are kind of roly-poly. See how they're a little tubby and just a little soft looking, right? Kind of roly-poly people, and always this sort of yellowish sepia kind of tone in his paintings. And look at this one again. What's going on up in the upper left-hand corner there? A landscape. He did it again. He blended everyday life and still gave us some landscape action. Okay, so let's start here, zoomed in on the lower left-hand corner. And if you're at home listening to this, sorry, you're going to have to Google it and follow along. Okay, so up here in the window of this building, who have we got? Somebody's sick or in trouble or grounded, probably pretty bummed out. Were you ever in trouble and had to sit in the house and watch everybody else play outside? Yeah. Okay. So down here, there's a little bit of work going on. If this were a higher resolution shot, these people are making like meat pies. So what's going on here with this little kid? Me, I want one, I'm hungry, give me a one, right? Okay, very everyday life-ish, right? Here, what's that look like? Talking to these two girls. Ladies, what did you do? Did you swipe a pie, right? Very much everyday life. Look at these kids. Playing dress up, making fun of the nuns, going to church or something maybe. I don't know, look at that. That's not what kids wear. Things over their heads. Okay. What's going on here? Anybody ever carry somebody like that? Where you make the little chair with your arms and, no? Okay. Let's slide right a little bit. Uh-oh. Fight. 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 It's that game you play in the pool with somebody on your shoulder. Looks like a game of chicken, doesn't it? On dry land. Okay. What? It's dangerous on dry land, yes, but they didn't have swimming pools. No. They did have water, but they didn't have swimming pools. Okay? Here's a barrel. If you take the hoops off of the barrel, you can play hoop and stick. Just basically roll the hoop along with your stick, try and keep it rolling. Now you think, oh, that's so easy. Well, that's because you have concrete sidewalks and streets and driveways. This is dirt. Rocks, stones, pebbles, hoof prints, right? This is a challenging game. Who can roll it furthest and farthest? Look at these two guys riding this barrel. It's like King of the Mountain barrel style, like log rolling. Whoever can knock the other guy off, maybe? I don't know. Right above there, and right above the game of chicken, what's going on with these guys in a row here?
They're playing leapfrog.
Leapfrog, of course. Some things are kind of universal, aren't they? Look at that. All right. Let's slide over a little bit to the right. Bullying, anyone? This does not look friendly. Anytime anybody has someone by the hands and the ankles, that's not a good thing. A little more piggyback riding going on. I think this is like the Renaissance version of Legos. It's bricks, definitely. They're building something, I don't know. The sand pile here. Okay. So we go up. Looks to me like somebody's teasing or taunting, and they're trying to reach this. And then we go left. Dog pile. Have they pulled this guy's hood over his face? Okay. Stilts, right? And then this looks like just trouble waiting to happen. Clearly his face is covered, and he's got a big long stick. It's all fun and games until somebody loses an eye, right? Can't be good. Can't be good. Look at this. Over here by this fence. Doesn't that look like an early, we don't have tires to run through football, footwork, agility test kind of thing? You know, somebody puts one leg up too high, somebody's going down. Right? Okay? A contortionist in the bunny. Well, doggone it. No. Back. Back. See, electronics is great until it doesn't work. Okay, so here we have a budding contortionist, some gymnasts, horseback riding, right? Do you know what imagination is? Imagination used to exist before the Xbox and the Wii, right?
We didn't have
Okay.
Xboxes or Wii's when we were kids.
You didn't? Wow. Now, wait a minute. You had something when you were kids, because I had an Intellivision when I was young, and my cousins had an Atari, so you had something. You had the Sega and Game Boys, GameCube. Yeah, you had imagination destroyers. All right. Look here. These guys are looking for a broken neck, aren't they? Hanging from this pole. Something crooked's going on up here. Somebody's gonna get. I'm thinking this is like early water ballooning, right? Definitely. Over here along the side of the building here, let's see who can climb up as far as they can go. Looks like a game of tag going on there. Pinata, this looks again like a way for somebody to get hurt. These guys are trying to reach it, somebody touches it, he swings it down, bonk. There's just infinite amounts of stuff going on in this painting, right? Ladies, you can all relate to this one. Over here by the riverbank, what are these girls doing? Was first time you put on a big long skirt, what do? Spin around, see how far out it'll go, and then you get so dizzy you fall down, right? There's even a guy over here fishing, okay, climbing trees. It's just a party in the street, right? Pretty cool painting, huh? Children's games. Okay, now, before you get thinking that Bruegel is all just happy and just peasant life, he also liked to paint the occasional allegorical painting. What's an allegory? What? Yeah, it stands for something else. This one's called an allegorical painting, but I think it's not real difficult to figure out what it stands for. This painting is called The Triumph of Death. This one is a massive painting. I encourage you to Google it and look at it in higher resolution. There is some really weird stuff going on in this painting. I'll just point out a few of the oddities. First of all, we got to figure out why it's death that's triumphing. Well, let's start with this boatload of bad guys coming in here on the left. What are they? Skeletons. A shipload of skeletons are coming to town. Uh-oh. Raging fire on our ship. That's not good. Wait, look up here in the background. Here's more ships coming, bringing, more marching columns of skeletons. This is not looking good. Death may, in fact, be triumphing. Let's look up here in the upper right-hand corner. What's going on here by this gallows? Oh, yeah, hanging people. Oh, look at the dude hanging out of this tree. His neck's just caught in the crotch of the tree. Uh-oh. Look at up here in the upper right-hand corner.
Eating him.
Oh, no. That is a broadsword. Chop his head off. Yeah. Up here, this is actually a guy stuck up here on this. He's essentially going to starve to death. This guy is being dragged off of the rock by another skeleton. Get down here, this guy is beating the drums for the skeletons all to march in step. Here comes another skeleton army behind their shields. This isn't looking good. And what's going on down here at this table? We just had a party. Woo! What kind of people have been seated at this party? How do you know that they're rich people? They have a tablecloth. They have food. Okay, well, peasants aren't going to have a tablecloth, but they would have had food. What else tells you they're rich? Nice clothing, fancy clothing. What's happening to them? Death is coming for them. What is Bruegel's comment here? Having money doesn't save you from death. Death comes for everyone. Death comes for everyone. Okay? All right, let's move further over to the left here. Here we have, what kind of people do we look like in here? Maybe more common people, everyday people. They're getting taken by death as well, aren't they? Look, here's even a knight in his armor. He's down. Even being a big, strong, powerful man can still be taken by death. We're going to talk about the indignity of death. Look at this. Here's the skeleton picking over this guy. He's pulling his soul out. Okay. Look at here. Any Simpsons fans in here at all? Looks like Santa's little helper. Yeah, that is a dog. What's he doing? He's eating the corpse. Yep. To prove to you that all people succumb to death, lower left-hand corner, who's that? The king. How do you know he's the king? He has a crown. He has that ermine stole on that's always the sign of royalty. Yeah, and what's this? Barrels of gold and silver. Barrels of gold and silver. Did they save the king? So, triumph of death. Got it? Think you can remember those three and who painted them? Bruegel. Bruegel. Not bagel. If you put down bagel, I will check it wrong. I once had somebody write down bagel the odor. Onion bagels do smell, but no, it's Bruegel the Elder. Okay, another Northern Renaissance artist, Albrecht Dürer. German students? Anybody in here taking German? What's this over the U?
Umlaut.
Umlaut. And it makes the Dürer. Okay? Dürer is sometimes called the Da Vinci of the North. He is called that not because he painted The Last Supper. He is called that because he's a bit of an inventor, a bit of a scientist, and certainly an artist. Dürer figured out how to turn artwork into prints. He would do engravings, and then you can apply ink to the engraving and stamp it down. And so what you have here is an engraving. You would do the pencil sketch, engrave the plate. Look at the level of detail in that. You can almost see the pores in the skin. You can see the folds in the knuckles. The way I always remember that he's kind of the Da Vinci of the North is, remember when we talked about Da Vinci's notes and how he would write backwards so you could like read them in a mirror? Think about how engraving has to work. If I'm going to put ink into it and stamp it down and have it come out, what looks like it sticks up the most, like the folds on the knuckles and the tips of the fingernails, that has to be dug in the deepest. It's opposite, kind of like Da Vinci took his notes. Okay, so you need to know Dürer, Da Vinci of the North, engraving. Okay. Has anybody ever seen a piece of artwork similar to this? It gets copied a lot. Lots of artists have done studies of Dürer's hands. Desiderius Erasmus. Remember the last name rule. The last name's what you have to know. Erasmus. He is a Christian humanist author for the Northern Renaissance. So Erasmus is a Christian humanist author. What other Christian humanist author is discussed in this section?
Peter Paul.
Nope. He's an artist. Sir Thomas More. Sir Thomas More is discussed when they get to England. Thomas More, what work is he known for? Utopia. What does utopia mean to us? A perfect society, a perfect place. Okay? What did Sir Thomas More write about in Utopia? There's no crime, there's peace, there's prosperity, everybody's smart. I'm sure everybody was good looking, right? Kind of like Lake Wobegon, where all the women are beautiful and all the children are strong, smart. Nobody knows, okay. Alrighty, well, Sir Thomas More created our meaning of utopia by writing about a perfect place where there was prosperity and peace and intelligence. He, in naming it Utopia when he wrote it, was being very satirical, very tongue-in-cheek, because utopia to him, when he wrote it, the meaning of utopia was no place. He wrote about this unbelievable place where everybody gets along and there's fairness and justice, and he titled it Utopia, which meant no place. He was basically saying, this can't happen. And we took what he wrote and changed the meaning of utopia for ourselves. And now we idealize that. Kind of cool, huh? Sort of missed the point though, didn't we? Or didn't they? Okay, so there's two Christian humanist authors, Erasmus and Thomas More. Okay, another artist. Last artist we're going to talk about. Jan van Eyck. Dutch. From the Netherlands. Jan van Eyck. We're going to spend all our time talking about one of his paintings. But Van Eyck is revolutionary in many ways. Northern Renaissance, Italian Renaissance. Italian Renaissance, lots and lots and lots of frescoes, right? And a fresco is painting into wet plaster. It's very easy to do that in Italy. It's a relatively dry Mediterranean climate. The plaster is going to dry and set. In the northern parts of Europe, not very dry, not very warm most of the year. Very, very, very few frescoes up north. The plaster never dried, it didn't set right, it was a problem. So they paint on wood. They'll paint eventually on canvases. Okay, lots of painting on wood early on. They also paint with different things. In Italy, they tended to paint with what were called temperas. Up north, temperas didn't dry right either. And so Van Eyck is one of the first guys to develop and use oils. He uses oil painting. He also starts a practice called wet on wet painting. Wet on wet. It allows a great deal of detail. It allows some unique blending of color. And it's very easy to do wet on wet painting with oils because they dry much more slowly. The one painting for Van Eyck that you have to know, this is called The Marriage of the Arnolfini. So get The Marriage of the Arnolfini. A-R-N-O-L-F-I-N-I. The Marriage of the Arnolfini. Guess who the Arnolfini is? That's the dude. That's Mr. Arnolfini, and there is Mrs. Arnolfini. This has been incorrectly called at times the betrothal of the Arnolfini. What's betrothal? Being betrothed. What's betrothed? Engaged. People thought this was an engagement portrait. They're wrong because look at the gal. That white headdress, only married women wore their hair and headdresses like that. If this were a betrothal, her hair would have been uncovered and down long. Okay? So we know that this is a marriage. Recent scholars have said that this is less about being a wedding portrait and more about being a business contract kind of thing. Here we have a very wealthy Flemish merchant. Okay? He's going to be traveling a lot. This portrait tells us, because of the way they're holding the hands, because of how she is looking at him, and because they are painted as equals, this tells us that it may be a contract saying she is able to conduct business on my behalf as well. Wealthy individuals in Flanders, women were not relegated or subjugated to a lesser role. They were equals. It was kind of unusual and very unique. If she were of a lesser social class, she would be looking directly down at the ground. She is looking more at him, which tells us that they are equals, but that her eyes are lowered, which means she recognizes that she is not the master of the house. He is telling us he's the master. He's telling us he's the master by raising that hand. That hand raised like that is, this is my power. I have power over you. Okay? These folks are loaded. How do we know that? What? They have a pet. Yes. Nobody can afford to keep a dog around unless it's a working dog. This is a toy breed that originated in Flanders, and it is definitely a lapdog. This is a fluffy little thing to waste money on. How else can we tell they're wealthy? Look at all of those clothes. She has a ton of fabric on. The more fabric you have, the wealthier you are. Guess what he trades in? Fabric. He's a fabric merchant. He trades in cloth. So of course she's got bunches and bunches and a lot of excess fabric just to trail around on the ground. That is me rubbing your nose in how rich I am. Okay? She is the 1434 equivalent of carrying a Coach purse with her Prada sunglasses and her Bruno Magliani shoes and just rubbing your nose in how rich she is. Okay? The other thing is, look at that fur trim there and around her armholes, and he's got fur trim all around his cloak. Here's another clue. They are so rich and have so much money and so many clothes, they're showing them off in this painting. Dang it. Showing them off in this painting. It's early summer, and I'll show you how we can tell that later. It's early summer. They're wearing their cloaks indoors just to show off, because they wouldn't have had fur on their normal garments. So they want this fur in the portrait. Ethan, you're going to have to do some explaining on this painting, so unless you want to have to watch it again on the podcast, you should focus here. Okay, Victoria, what were you going to say or ask? She is not pregnant. She is not pregnant. That was the style of dress at the time. There's a lot of excess fabric there, and I will explain to you why it looks like she's pregnant. We know she wasn't pregnant. They died childless. Okay? So yes, she may have been pregnant and there was a miscarriage, but, and I'll explain why it's a but. Okay, what else do you notice about this painting? What? The chandelier. What about that chandelier? It's not made of gold, it's made of brass, but brass is a pretty expensive thing, and in fact, it's very expensive. What?
Don't they have floors?
They have floors. That is a wood floor they are standing on. Cha-ching. Look at that, all the cloth all over the bed. Now there's two reasons for that. One, they're loaded, and two, when it's cold, it's freezing. So if you can kind of make a tent around your bed to keep your body heat in there, you're going to be much, much warmer all through the night and sleep better. What's this on the table over here behind him? Those are oranges. Where do oranges grow? Tropical, along the Mediterranean. Definitely not in Flanders. So what does that tell you? They're rich. This is also an indication that he may have traded in some rarer kinds of things as well. Because you got to have some money and some fast ships to get oranges to Flanders before they rot. Okay? How else can you tell they're rich? It's not a clock, it's a mirror. Mirrors are only for the very wealthy at this point in time as well. They're very difficult to make, and the thing that makes this even more expensive is that it's a convex mirror. It's one of those that's bowed out. So there's no plain sheet of glass. They have glass in their windows and even colored glass up here. This is very highly carved, their bedstead is. And look, they have multiple pairs of shoes. Here's hers, here's his, and they have some on. Wow. A lot of the population of Flanders, no shoes at all. These guys are rubbing their noses in their extra pairs of shoes by just leaving them laying around. It's not like the portrait artist just showed up and snapped a picture. This was done on purpose, okay? All right. So, look at the detail on that chandelier. That could look like, if I hadn't had to shrink the resolution down to get it on here, that would look like a snapshot. Look at that detail, the light. What's wrong with this chandelier? What's out of place?
It doesn't have one of the little things like.
Oh, no, we just happen to be looking at it that way. It's not that there's an arm missing. Victoria?
So there's only one candle?
There's only one candle. One candle is part of the Flemish marriage ceremony. Which side of the portrait is the candle on? On the guy's side. He is the power, he is the light, he is the center of the relationship. It's the way it is. This writing down here at the bottom essentially says Jan van Eyck was here 1434. He witnessed the ceremony. He's testifying to this marriage contract. Okay? Look at the carving. This is the Virgin Mary. Little fertility going on. This is the corner of the bedstead. Okay? Oh, looky. This is the epitome of wet on wet painting. To get that level of detail on this hairy little dog, look at his eyes. Does it not look like you could just go and pick him up and he'd be licking your face and wagging his tail? Come on, look at him. He is so real. Look behind him. Look at what he's standing on. Look at that wood grain. It's not enough to just paint the wood floors in. We can tell those are oak from the wood grain. That much detail. Look at this rug up here that they're standing on. Intricate weaving, lots of color, large rug. Again, telling us the Arnolfini are loaded. Money, money, money. Okay? No. Why does it do that? Past the chandelier. Past the doggy. There we go. The mirror. All right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah. There's paintings within the painting. Mind blown. These things around the outside of the mirror are scenes from the Passion. Does anybody know what the Passion is? Kind of.
It's like the Passion of Jesus, like the steps to him being killed.
Crucifixion. Yeah, it's the basically the Stations of the Cross leading up to the crucifixion. Now, on this side, who's on this side of the portrait? On the right-hand side? The woman. These are all scenes from the Passion that involve Mary and motherhood and nurturing. Okay? What do you see? Doggone it. All right, we'll just stay right here on it. What do you see in the painting, in the mirror itself? You see them. Euclidean geometry. Again, perspective, right? But this is non-Euclidean geometry, because Euclidean geometry is on a flat plane. But what are we dealing with here? A convex mirror. Van Eyck made a couple of small mistakes. We think intentionally. The lines on his mirror and the windowsill are too straight to be accurate here. There's 4 people here. Here we have her and him, Van Eyck, and somebody else. Why is there a 4th person in the painting? Because a marriage ceremony needs 2 witnesses. 2 witnesses. Okay, over here to the left, these beads. He painted those with a magnifying glass so that he could get just the right light reflection to make them look like the glass beads that they were. Okay? In the whole painting, on the bedstead, there's a little broom or brush hanging there. Again, motherhood. The red drapes on the bed. Lust, love, passion. Meaning that they wanted very much to conceive a child. Possibly also why she's painted as looking as though she was pregnant. The desire to conceive, the desire to be a mother, kind of that hope, that contract to fulfill that part of the marriage vow. Pretty cool stuff, huh? You had no idea it was so much in a portrait. Van Eyck does a lot of portraits. He sometimes will also work landscape in. Outside this mirror, if you zoom in on that side of outside of the window, if you zoom in on the window in the painting, you can see a tree outside the window. It's bearing fruit. It's a cherry tree, which is how we know it's early summer. So that's when cherry trees ripen. Detail. Detail, detail, detail. Check these out online and take a look at them in really high resolution. There's something else. Questions? Peter Paul Rubens, you don't have to know. He's too much into the nudies. I'm not going to subject you to that.